They say love builds empires, until pride burns them down. The night Dallas glittered like it was dipped in gold. The ballroom of the Titan Towers shimmered beneath chandeliers that caught every heartbeat of light. Glasses clinked. Cameras flashed. And ambition filled the air thicker than the scent of champagne. It was the kind of night people spent years chasing, one built on image, power, and perfect smiles. And at the center of it all stood Isabella Cole. The world knew her as the visionary behind Cole Design Group, the woman who turned sketches into skyscrapers, the artist who made glass and steel look like poetry. Her silver-gray dress fit her like it was stitched out of confidence itself. Reporters whispered her name like it was a brand. Investors smiled a little too wide when she looked their way. It was her night. Her company was about to sign an $800 million contract with Titan Infrastructure, a deal that would crown her one of the most powerful female CEOs in the South. Every light in the room seemed to bend toward her. Every lens wanted a piece of her victory, but in the back of the room, almost hidden by the soft shadows of the crowd, sat Nathan Cole, her husband. He didn't belong to the world of flashes and microphones. He wore a navy suit, plain and unbranded, the kind that didn't announce anything. No gold watch, no monogrammed cufflinks, just quiet presence. His hands were folded, his expression calm, eyes steady on the woman he had once built dreams with. Nathan wasn't just another guest, but nobody there knew that. They saw a man who looked too ordinary for a night like this, too silent to be important. To them, he was a shadow in her light, a husband carried along by her success. He'd been that shadow for years. The quiet supporter. The man who paid the bills when her sketches didn't sell. Who made coffee at 2 a.m. while she chased contracts. The man who believed that love didn't need a spotlight to matter. But somewhere along the way, success had changed the air around her. What once felt like partnership had turned into hierarchy. When she spoke to him lately, it was with the tone of someone addressing an obligation, not an equal. She didn't mean to hurt him, at least not at first, but success feeds pride. And pride feeds blindness. And tonight, under those golden lights, she had become a woman he barely recognized. Still, he came. Because that's what Nathan Cole did. He showed up. Quietly. Loyally. Without asking for applause. As the host's voice rose over the crowd, "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks a historic partnership between Cole Design Group and Titan Infrastructure." The room erupted in cheers. Isabella smiled graciously, basking in the noise. Every inch, the queen of her empire. Nathan smiled too. A small, private smile that carried no jealousy. Only a strange kind of peace. He was proud of her. Genuinely. But something in his chest told him this night would not end the way she expected. Because love, no matter how deep, cannot survive long in the shadow of contempt. And when pride begins to speak louder than gratitude, even the quietest man learns how to be heard. The applause swelled. The music played. Isabella lifted her glass toward the cameras, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Nathan lifted his too, but for a different reason. In that moment, he wasn't toasting her success. He was saying goodbye to the illusion that love could survive unchecked pride. And as the crowd cheered her name, he sat still, unmoving, knowing that sometimes the loudest storms start in silence. He loved her enough to build her world. But soon, she'd learn what happens when you humiliate the man who built the floor beneath your empire. The signing ceremony began like a coronation. Applause thundered through the ballroom as Isabella Cole stepped down from the stage. Her smile flawless. Her confidence unshakable. Cameras followed her every move, hungry for another perfect frame. She had spent her life preparing for this moment, the night her name would finally sit among the Titans. Nathan rose slowly from his seat at the back. His expression was calm. His steps measured. He held a glass of champagne, not as a gesture of celebration, but of quiet respect. He waited until the crowd's noise softened, then approached her through the maze of silk gowns, black suits, and admiring eyes. When she saw him, her smile flickered. Just for a moment, a brief crack in the mask. "Nathan," she said softly, almost surprised. He nodded. "I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. Izzy, you worked hard for this." The words were gentle, honest, the kind only a man who had seen her at her lowest could say, but the audience was listening. The investors, the executives, the reporters all waiting for her next elegant soundbite. And in that pressure, pride twisted into performance. Her laugh came too quickly, too sharp. "That's sweet," she said, her tone sugar-coated for the crowd. "But this is a corporate event. You can congratulate me at home." A few people nearby chuckled politely, unsure whether it was humor or dismissal. Nathan smiled faintly. "I just wanted to stand beside you for a minute, to see you shine." Her face stiffened. That quiet humility she once loved in him now looked like weakness in front of her new world. She leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper meant only for him, though half the table could hear. "Nathan, please, don't make a scene. These people, they're not like you." He studied her for a moment, then asked quietly, "Not like me." Her jaw tightened. She felt the attention of the room tilting toward them. Investors pausing mid-conversation. Photographers sensing something more interesting than the usual speech. She forced a brittle smile and spoke louder this time, performing again. "You don't belong here. Nathan, these people build cities. You build excuses." The laughter this time was uneasy. A few gasps. Even the orchestra seemed to falter. Nathan didn't flinch. He simply looked at her the way you look at someone you once knew but can no longer recognize. "I'm not here to embarrass you," he said softly. "I just wanted to tell you I'm proud." Something inside her snapped. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was the pressure of all those eyes. Maybe it was years of believing that love was just another contract. She picked up her glass dark red, smooth, trembling slightly in her hand. "You're proud of me," she repeated, voice tightening until it cut. "You should be ashamed of yourself." The words came like venom. "You can barely stand for yourself. Nathan, look around you. These people wear power. You wear failure." And before reason could stop her, the glass tilted. The wine left the rim in a slow, perfect arc, red against gold. Liquid fire in the camera flashes. It hit his face with a soft slap, splashing across his cheek and collar. Nathan blinked once. The wine slid down his jaw, dripping from his chin onto his cuff. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a white handkerchief, and wiped his face slowly. Methodically, a collective breath held. The scent of wine and shock filled the air. A photographer's flash went off, capturing the exact moment of impact. The husband, drenched in red. The wife, standing tall, her hand still raised. Time fractured into silence. Then, when he finally spoke, his voice was calm, low enough that only those closest could hear. "Congratulations, Isabella," he said. "Enjoy your moment." He turned and walked away. No anger, no words, just quiet control. No one stopped him. No one dared. The room froze. Behind him, the crowd began to murmur, the kind of murmurs that start as curiosity but grow into shame. Isabella stood frozen, her pulse pounding in her ears. The cameras still flashed, but the attention felt colder now. Like a spotlight that exposes instead of flatters. Someone whispered. Was that her husband? Another voice? Did she just throw wine on him? She forced a tight laugh, waving her hand as though brushing away a trivial inconvenience. "My husband gets emotional around success," she said lightly. The laughter that followed wasn't real. It was nervous. Polite. The music started again. But the energy in the room had changed. Something invisible had cracked, and as Nathan stepped out into the cool night air beyond those golden doors, the applause behind him sounded like it belonged to another lifetime. He didn't wipe his collar again. He didn't curse. Didn't flinch. Didn't break. He simply walked steady. Silent. With the composure of a man who understood that revenge doesn't need noise, because sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is leave the room. She thought she'd humiliated him. But that night, she didn't pour wine on her husband. She poured it on the foundation of her own empire. The night air outside the ballroom was cool and still an eerie calm after the storm. The laughter and clinking glasses from inside the hotel drifted faintly through the glass doors, muffled by distance. Nathan Cole stepped into that quiet like a man walking out of a burning building without looking back. He didn't rush. He didn't curse. He simply reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. The screen glowed softly against the dark. 2 names were already on speed dial, 2 people who knew what to do without needing explanation. He pressed the first one. Pierce. Came the voice on the other end. Brisk and professional. Cancel Titan's signing. Nathan said evenly. There was a pause. Sir, you heard me. Effective immediately. No signing. No partnership. No press release. Make the announcement now. Yes. Mr. Cole. He hung up. No hesitation. No emotion. Just precision. Then he scrolled to the next contact and pressed the call button again. Hayes, speaking, said the voice calm. Familiar. Cautious. Withdraw all Meridian Capital investments from Cole Design Group. Nathan said, every account. Every subsidiary. Every cent. Tonight. The voice didn't question him. Understood. Confirmation by midnight. By 10. Nathan replied, yes. Sir. He ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. Above him, the city skyline stretched in silent witness, towers glowing like distant embers. He could see the ballroom lights reflected on the hotel's glass. Gold and bright. A world he had just stepped out of. Inside, the woman he'd once called his partner was still smiling for cameras, unaware that her entire empire was already collapsing under her heels. Nathan exhaled slowly. There was no satisfaction in the act, no cruel pleasure. Just inevitability. Like a tide pulling back to reveal what's real once the glitter is gone. People often mistook his silence for weakness. They assumed humility meant submission. But silence, in the right hands, is strategy. And humility, when chosen, is power waiting for purpose. Tonight, that purpose had arrived. Meridian Capital, the quiet financial force behind half the projects in Dallas, had always been a mystery to outsiders. No one ever saw its owner. They only knew its influence discreet, decisive, untouchable. What no one knew, not the press, not the investors, not even Isabella, was that Meridian Capital belonged entirely to Nathan Cole. Every skyscraper she'd ever designed, every contract she'd ever signed, every inch of her success had been built on the invisible foundation he provided, not out of control, but out of love, out of belief in her talent, out of hope that their dreams were still shared. But love built on blindness cannot survive contempt. She'd forgotten that the quiet man at her table was also the architect of her future. The same man she dismissed as unworthy owned the pen that could erase her name from every ledger that mattered. Inside the hotel, the orchestra shifted to a slower tune, the kind meant for celebration. Nathan stood beneath the streetlight, the faint hum of traffic in the distance, and let the moment wash over him. He wasn't angry anymore. He wasn't even sad. He was simply done. The revenge wasn't loud or cinematic. It wasn't fire or fury. It was an adjustment of balance, restoring truth, where pride had rewritten the story. He looked up at the moonlit glass tower above him, where Isabella's reflection might still have been smiling into cameras. Completely unaware that every camera in the city would soon turn on her. Then he turned, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the parking lot. His steps echoing quietly against the concrete. The night didn't applaud. It didn't cheer. It just listened, and in that silence, something shifted forever. She poured wine on the man she thought was beneath her. But what she never knew was that he owned the ground she was standing on. Inside the ballroom, the celebration swelled to its final act. Laughter rippled. Glasses clinked. Flashbulbs painted the room in white bursts of triumph. Isabella Cole stood at the podium once more, her silver dress glimmering under the chandeliers. To everyone watching, she looked untouchable, an icon of female success. The woman who had conquered an industry built by men. The host's voice boomed proudly through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight marks a historic partnership between Cole Design Group and Titan Infrastructure. A contract valued at $800 million. Applause roared. Cameras clicked like thunder. Isabella's smile widened. Flawless and practiced, she took the gold-trimmed folder from the host's hand, poised her pen over the signature line. Every movement was deliberate, cinematic, almost divine. She imagined the headlines, "Cole secures historic deal." Her fingers tightened around the pen, and then something changed. A man in a charcoal suit moved swiftly through the tables. Phone pressed to his ear, his expression draining of color. Another executive rose halfway, eyes fixed on a message flashing across his screen. The orchestra faltered mid-note. The host hesitated. Voice caught in his throat. "Mrs. Cole, one moment. Please." Isabella froze, her pen still hovering above the page. "What is it?" she asked, irritation curling in her tone. The man at the front exchanged a nervous glance with another board member, then whispered something. The host blinked, confused, then leaned into the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just received a notice from Titan's executive office." A pause. The crowd rustled. "The contract signing is temporarily suspended." The room went still. Isabella blinked, her smile faltering. "Suspended? That's ridiculous." "Why?" The man cleared his throat. "An internal directive, effective immediately. All proceedings are to halt." Laughter rippled from one of the investors, an awkward, disbelieving sound. "Surely that's a mistake." But the man only shook his head. It came directly from the top. The words dropped like stones in water, sending quiet shockwaves through the hall. Isabella's voice cracked. "No. That can't be right. I just spoke with the Titan board yesterday." At that moment, her assistant rushed forward, phone trembling in her hand. "Isabella," she whispered, her face pale. "Something's wrong. We just got an email from Meridian Capital." The name hit the air like a gunshot. "Meridian?" Isabella asked. "What about them?" Her assistant's eyes darted nervously to the crowd. "They've pulled all funding. Every account. Every project. It says effective immediately." The pen slipped from Isabella's fingers and clattered against the marble floor. The crowd erupted into whispers. Phones lit up. Investors leaned over tables, scrolling through live alerts. The headlines were already updating in real time. Titan cancels historic deal minutes before signing. Meridian Capital withdraws. Support from Cole Design Group. CEO's public meltdown. Sparks corporate panic. Isabella's breath came shallow. The lights above her suddenly felt too bright, too hot. She could hear her own pulse over the hum of confusion. "This isn't possible," she whispered. "It's a glitch, an error." But it wasn't. Across the room, executives were closing laptops, gathering papers, Reporters lowered their cameras. The applause that had filled the air just minutes ago had vanished, replaced by an awful, living silence. She looked down at the unsigned contract, her name printed neatly above the empty line. The empire she had spent her life building was dissolving before her eyes. Not in months or days, but seconds, somewhere inside that chaos. Her gaze drifted toward the door. She pictured him, Nathan, walking away into the night. Calm, silent, certain, and the truth hit her with the force of gravity itself. This wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a mistake. It was precision. Her lips parted, the word escaping like a prayer or a confession. Nathan, but he wasn't there to hear it. The guests began to leave quietly. The once golden hall, echoing only with the sound of retreating footsteps. The music had stopped. The wine had gone still, and beneath the chandeliers that had once made her glow, Isabella Cole stood alone, bathed not in triumph, but in the ruin of her own pride. In less than 5 minutes, the woman who had everything learned how fast everything can vanish when the man you dismissed was the one holding the switch. The city had quieted. Dallas slept under a silver moon, unaware that an empire had just collapsed behind glass and gold. Across town, Nathan Cole unlocked the door to his home. The house greeted him with silence, the kind that feels earned. Not empty. No servants. No music. No lights left burning. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the faint scent of cedar from the floors he'd refinished himself. He hung up his jacket, loosened his tie, and poured himself a glass of water. Not whiskey. Not celebration. Just water, clear. Cold. Grounding. He leaned against the counter, watching the city lights flicker through the window. His phone buzzed once. Then again. Then again. Notifications rolled across the screen like falling dominoes. Titan cancels WIT $1 million deal. Meridian Capital withdraws from Cole Design Group. CEO's public humiliation ends $1 million empire. Nathan didn't open them. He simply let them arrive and fade. He had already seen enough of the world's noise to know that silence was the truest headline of all. He took another sip, set the glass down, and let out a slow breath. His reflection stared back from the dark window, calm, steady, untouched. The kind of calm that comes when a man finally stops trying to prove his worth to someone who never saw it. Across the city, chaos screamed. Isabella's night had turned into a storm. The same reporters who had worshipped her hours ago now crowded her driveway, shouting her name through flashing cameras. The same investors who toasted her success now vanished behind unanswered calls and silent inboxes. Her phone rang nonstop. Board members, lawyers, journalists, all demanding answers she didn't have. Every headline repeated her humiliation like an echo she couldn't escape. Every clip replayed the moment, the red wine arcing through the air. The splash. The stillness. The internet didn't forget. It never does. Inside her luxury apartment, she sat on the edge of her couch, makeup streaked, phone buzzing beside her like a heartbeat gone mad. Every vibration felt like another piece of her life falling away. She tried to breathe, but the air felt heavier now, thick with regret, shame, and the bitter taste of realization. Pride had been her perfume. Tonight, it smelled like ruin. Meanwhile, Nathan's world remained still. He turned off his phone, placed it face down on the counter, and walked toward his room. The only sound left was the faint hum of the air vent and the quiet rhythm of his own breathing. No gloating, no fury, just peace. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't loud. It doesn't shout. It doesn't post. It doesn't beg to be seen. It simply erases your name from the future you thought was yours. He didn't destroy her with anger. He did it with silence, patience, and precision. And when the world finally caught up, he was already free. Dawn came quietly. The kind of morning where the world feels clean again, unaware of the wreckage left behind by the night. Nathan Cole stood in the kitchen, coffee steaming in his hand, the sun spilling gold across the marble countertop. For the first time in years, his home felt peaceful, like the silence finally had space to breathe. Then came the knock, soft at first, then again more desperate. Uneven, he opened the door. There she was, Isabella. Her once flawless hair now tangled. Her lipstick faded to a pale outline. The silver dress from the night before was creased, stained, a ghost of the woman who had ruled the ballroom. Mascara streaked down her face like the evidence of a storm that hadn't yet stopped. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Nathan, please, let me explain." He didn't speak. He stepped aside. She walked past him into the living room, her heels scraping softly against the floor. For a long moment, neither said a word. Then she turned, trembling. It was pride. "Nathan, not hate. I didn't mean any of it." Her hands shook as she reached for him. "You know me. You know I lose myself when I'm nervous. I can fix this. Just tell them to reverse it. Call Titan. Call Meridian. I'll apologize. I'll do whatever you need me to." Her voice broke into pieces. Nathan looked at her the way a man looks at a painting he once loved, now cracked and colorless. His tone stayed calm, steady. "You poured wine on the man who built your empire," he said. "Tell me, Isabella, what part should I fix first?" She stared at him, lost. "You mean you?" He nodded once. "Trident, Meridian, Titan. They all trace back to me. The same man you called unworthy." Her knees weakened. "No, that can't be. You never said. I never needed to." His voice was quiet, almost kind. "You didn't see me when I was beside you. Why would you see me above you?" Tears filled her eyes. "Please, Nathan, don't do this. We can start over. I'll walk away from the company, from everything. Just don't leave me with nothing." He looked at her for a long time, the weight of her words settling in the space between them. Then he spoke, slow and deliberate. "You already did," she sobbed, falling to her knees. "I'll change. I'll make it right. You can have everything. Just give me one more chance." Nathan exhaled, his tone final, almost tender. "You once said I wasn't worthy to stand beside you." He paused, eyes steady on hers. "You were right." He turned away, the sound of his footsteps fading into silence. Isabella stayed there on the floor, surrounded by everything she had lost: power, pride, and the only man who ever truly believed in her. She built her world on his shoulders, and when she spat on the man beneath her, she forgot he was the one holding it up. The sun rose slow over Dallas, painting the skyline in gold. Nathan drove through the quiet streets, windows down, the cool air carrying away the last traces of last night. No anger, no regret, just peace. He'd lost nothing worth keeping, and she'd kept nothing worth having. As the city came to life, his voice echoed softly beneath the hum of the engine. "They say silence is weakness, but silence is power, waiting for purpose. Betrayal doesn't define a man. His response does." He turned down the road leading home, the morning light spilling across his face. The same hands that once built her empire now rested loosely on the wheel. Steady, sure, free. Later, on his porch, coffee in hand, he watched the sun rise fully gold over glass, warm over everything he'd reclaimed. The world was quiet again, and for the first time, so was he. "Brothers, if you were me, would you have forgiven her?" Or let the truth speak louder than revenge? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories where men lose everything and rise stronger than ever.